I endured being the neglected daughter while my golden child younger sister was showered with love. But after an argument about dirty dishes with my parents on my 18th birthday, they kicked me out of the house. Growing up, I always felt like the wallpaper in my own home, always there but never really noticed. It's not like I was expecting parades in my honor every day, but a little acknowledgement would have been nice, you know? If you ever wanted to know what being invisible felt like, you should have dropped by my house during one of my sick spells. Trust me, it wasn't like those TV shows where the sick kid gets pampered and fussed over. Nah, in my case, it was more like being part of the furniture. Useful, but not really something you pay much attention to unless it's in your way. This one time, right before midterms during my junior year, I caught the flu. Bad. I'm talking about the real deal, the kind that knocks you flat and makes you wish you could just sleep through the whole miserable experience. Now, usually a sick kid would mean a change in the daily rhythm of the house, right? Well, not in mine. It started on a Monday. I remember because I tried to get up for school and nearly collapsed back into bed. I was burning up. My head felt like it was being squeezed in a vice, and every limb in my body ached like I'd run a marathon the day before. So there I was, a snotty, feverish mess, barely able to shout a weak "Mom" towards the door as she hustled about getting Amanda ready for her big dance audition. "Can you check on me?" I croaked out as she passed by my room, her hands full of Amanda's sparkly dance costumes and makeup kits. "I think I'm really sick." She poked her head in, forehead wrinkled more in annoyance than concern. "Just take some aspirin and try to get some rest, honey. I don't have time right now. Amanda's audition is today, and we're already late." With that, she was gone. The front door slammed shut minutes later, the sound echoing weirdly in the empty house. It was just me, alone, feeling like crap, and suddenly very aware of just how low I ranked on the family priority list. For the next 3 days, my room became my little quarantine zone. I drifted in and out of feverish sleep, waking up occasionally to the sounds of the house, Amanda practicing her routines, the clatter of dishes, the muffled tones of my parents' voices discussing everything and anything but me. One night, I lay there listening as they went on about how Amanda's audition went, her chances of getting the lead role, and what they'd do to celebrate if she got it. It wasn't like they completely ignored me. Mom would pop her head in once in a while, remind me to drink water, maybe leave some soup on the nightstand if I was awake. But it was all done in a sort of automatic check-the-box way that made me feel more like a chore than a son. Then there was Amanda. Look, I know it sounds like I'm painting her as the villain here, but she's not. She's just caught up in her world, a world where she's the star, and I'm not even sure I'm in the cast. When she did come in to see how I was doing, it was usually on her way out, her sympathy quick and rehearsed before she dashed off to meet friends or attend another practice. "Hope you're feeling better now," she'd say, not really asking because she didn't plan to stay long enough to hear the answer. It was during one of those sick days, though, that something shifted for me. It was a Wednesday, and I was lying there, staring at the ceiling, the house quiet, except for the distant sound of Amanda practicing. I started thinking about all those paintings I'd done, stacked up against the walls of my room, scenes filled with color and life, and how in contrast my real world felt so gray and muted. So, birthdays in my house? They're kind of a big deal. Well, at least when it's Amanda's. Mine, on the other hand, tends to get the short end of the stick, which is especially tough since our birthdays are just one day apart. Yeah, you heard that right. While she gets the red carpet treatment, mine is more like an afterthought, a box to tick before moving on to the main event. This year, though, was supposed to be different. It was my 18th. A milestone, right? Finally hitting that magic number where you're supposed to be an adult. I wasn't expecting a blowout or anything, but I thought maybe this time things might tilt a bit in my favor. Even just a little. I should have known better. I decided to take matters into my own hands. If history had taught me anything, it was that sitting around waiting to be disappointed was no way to live. So I planned my own little celebration. Nothing fancy, just a dinner with a few close friends at a local bistro I'd been eyeing for a while. The place was cool, kind of quirky and laid back, just my style. They even had this little rooftop area where you could eat under the stars if the weather was good. I pitched the idea to Mom a week before D-Day. I caught her in one of her rare slow moments when she was in between organizing Amanda's dance life and her charity work. "Hey, Mom, for my birthday, I was thinking maybe we could do a dinner? Just something small at the bistro downtown? I already checked and they've got space." She looked up, slightly surprised that I was planning my own thing. "Oh, that sounds nice, dear. Sure, we can do that." It was the first time in a long time I felt like I'd managed to get her full attention, even if it was just for a moment. Energized by this small win, I went all out. I booked the table, planned the menu with the restaurant manager, who was super cool about making sure we had options for everyone, and even sent out invites to my friends and the family. As the day got closer, I could feel the familiar knot of anticipation in my stomach. Not just for the party, but to see if it would actually turn out like I hoped. The night before, I laid out my outfit. A new shirt I'd bought specially, nothing fancy, but it made me feel good. I went to bed with a weird mix of nerves and excitement. It felt like maybe, just maybe, this birthday would be different. The day itself started off well enough. I got texts from my friends saying they were excited for the evening. I spent the day just chilling, saving up my energy for the night. Mom and Dad even wished me a happy birthday in the morning, which, was something. I showed up at the bistro a bit early, not wanting to seem too eager, but also because I couldn't wait to get the night started. The staff had set up the rooftop just like I'd asked, with lights strung up and everything. It looked amazing, and for a brief, shining moment, I felt like everything was going to be perfect. 7 p.m. rolled around, the time we'd agreed on, and I was there, waiting. The view from the rooftop was great, the weather was perfect, and I was ready to have the best birthday. But then 7:15 came, and then 7:30, and I was still standing there, alone. I kept checking my phone, but there were no messages, no calls, nothing. The staff at the bistro were giving me those sympathetic looks that just made it worse. They'd ask if I wanted to start with a drink or maybe sit down, but I kept saying, just a few more minutes, they'll be here. By 8, the reality had sunk in. I wasn't just being paranoid. Nobody was coming. Not my friends, not my family. Nobody. The weight of that realization was like a punch to the gut. I felt stupid, standing there all dressed up with nowhere to go, surrounded by empty chairs that seemed to mock me with their vacancy. I ended up sitting down, more to stop the waiters from looking so worried than anything else. I ordered food, mostly out of a need to do something, to fill the silence around me with the clatter of plates and the murmur of other diners who were actually enjoying their evenings. As I sat there, picking at food I no longer wanted, the hurt started to give way to anger. Why was it always like this? Why was I always the afterthought, the one whose feelings didn't seem to matter? I was so lost in my thoughts that I didn't notice the time slipping away, the sky darkening around me until the stars were out, witnesses to my pathetic solo party. I made the decision to phone Amanda in the hopes that she might have some answers. Since I knew I had to figure out what was going on, I was on the point of panic. But I attempted to seem calm when she answered on the second ring. She said in passing that she was at home when I asked her where everyone was. I was totally perplexed. She revealed something shocking to me when I asked when she intended to visit the restaurant. "Oh, I forgot to tell you," she added, "but we had to call off the celebration." Mom was not in good health. I was stunned. Why hadn't anyone informed me about the cancellation? I questioned her. I reasoned that there might have been a mix-up or a communication error. Amanda gave a startlingly casual response. "I'm sorry," she said. "I suppose I neglected to inform you." It was like to a blow to the abdomen. They hadn't even bothered to warn me ahead of time. And here I was all dressed up, waiting at the restaurant. I made an effort to digest her words. I asked her if there was any way to save the evening if Mom was okay, or if there was any chance they could still make it. However, Amanda's answer was icy and contemptuous. "I really have to go now," she said. She simply hung up on me after that. I was hurt and left, sitting there in shock. It was incredibly difficult, but I tried to remain calm. I felt like I had planned this evening with a lot of work and had received nothing in return. Trying not to cry, I took in the view of the restaurant. I observed gatherings of friends and family taking pleasure in their meals. I felt even more alone as a result. I was sitting there alone with no one to share the celebration or conversation with. The environment was so empty. It was painful considering how terrible I was sitting there. I observed someone walking through the restaurant's entrance while I was scrolling through my feed in an attempt to divert my attention from my mounting unhappiness. To my surprise, as I looked up, there was my grandfather. I assumed my mom had invited everyone, so I wasn't expecting him to show up. The sight of a familiar face honestly startled and relieved me. He said, "Happy birthday," as he approached with a kind grin. As he got closer, I experienced a wave of emotion. I got up and embraced him tightly. It was one of those hugs you needed when it seemed like everything else was crumbling. It felt like a tiny ray of hope in an otherwise dismal evening. So I thanked him for coming. Glancing around, he asked me where the others were. I was trying to hold it together and had been fighting back tears up until that point. But when he posed that straightforward query, it was as though a dam had broken. I was at my breaking point. That's when in the middle of the restaurant I started bawling. My cheeks turned red and I could feel the tears welling up. Taking a deep breath, I attempted to explain the events that had occurred. I sobbed as I told him about how I had come early, how nobody had turned up, and how Amanda had called to let me know that Mom wasn't feeling well, so the party was canceled. I informed him that on my particular day I had been sitting there by myself, feeling utterly forgotten and abandoned. With patience, my grandfather listened, and I could see worry in his eyes. He told me he was so sorry and put a consoling hand on my shoulder. He claimed that he arrived as quickly as he could and that he was unaware of the cancellation. He was obviously upset by the circumstance, and his presence was a much-needed consolation. While we waited for my food to arrive, we talked to cheer me up. He told me some jokes and related some experiences from his day, though it wasn't as exciting as I had anticipated. His presence gave the meal a celebratory vibe. I felt a sense of relief as we spoke. I was disappointed by my family, but at least I wasn't alone. It was difficult to savor the cuisine to its fullest when it finally arrived. I was left with a bad taste in my mouth from the previous events. So I picked up my plate, more out of habit than appetite. Ever. The trooper. My grandfather made sure to keep the conversation lively and interesting. He took advantage of the circumstance and kept me company. When my grandfather and I arrived home that evening, I was still feeling a little raw. All I wanted to do was crawl into my room and close my eyes. I remained silent in front of my parents. I simply headed directly to my room and shut the door. I was hoping for a little quiet time. A few minutes after the night's emotional roller coaster, though, I was startled out of my reverie by the sounds of shouting emanating from the living room. I made the decision to walk downstairs to investigate, as I was a little taken aback and concerned. The shouting grew louder and more fierce as I descended the stairs, and when I arrived to the bottom, I found my mom and grandfather engaged in a furious fight. My mother was furiously questioning my grandfather about how he was able to harm them. She spoke in a disbelieving and angry tone. I didn't know what to think. What they were arguing over was unknown to me. It was obvious that this was more than just a typical family argument. As I stood there attempting to make sense of the circumstances, I could tell from what I could see that the disagreement also involved my grandfather. It seems that my grandfather changed his mind after telling my mother that he would leave his house in his will. My mother was still the entitled brat she had been when she lived with my grandfather, who was quite angry about this, clearly unhappy over her treatment of me. He was also ashamed of it, his own granddaughter, during the heated argument. My grandfather turned to face me, inhaled deeply, and wished me a good birthday, and made his way toward the entrance. It was an odd time, a moment of conflicting feelings. His encouraging comments gave me some little consolation, but the turmoil that had descended was too much to bear. Without saying anything else, he disappeared, leaving me to stand there and attempt to take it all in. My mother turned to me and gave me a serious look when he left. She insisted on knowing what I had shared with him. The question took me by surprise, but I made an effort to remain composed. I just told it like it was saying nothing. After all, it was the real deal about how Amanda had casually stated that the party was canceled without properly warning me, and how I had been left alone on my birthday. Anger twisted my mother's face, but before she could say anything more, I simply turned and headed back to my room. Exhaustion and frustration mixed as I leaned against the door and shut it behind me. It had seemed like a long night, and I had hoped for a tranquil end to a challenging day. I eventually collapsed into my bed and attempted to quiet my racing mind. I wanted to skip ahead to the rest of the night because I was so emotionally spent. I felt even more alone after the argument, and I couldn't get rid of the feeling that I was a part of something much bigger than myself. I was left wondering if this was how things would always be or if things would ever change. After the evening did not turn out at all like I had anticipated, I hoped for some sort of tranquility and a better start to the following day as I closed my eyes. The following day when I awoke, I had the impression that I was in a whole other universe. The whole ambiance of the house seemed chilly and uneasy. I felt invisible because of the icy distance with which my family was treating me. In comparison to the typical pandemonium and warmth of family gatherings, it was quite different. As soon as I came downstairs, I saw that everything was ready for Amanda's birthday overnight. It felt as though a whole switch had been flipped. I could see my mom was feeling better since she was cooking like crazy and rushing around the kitchen. The aromas of what I could only assume were large birthday celebration. Preparations filled the home, and I was struck with a wave of dissatisfaction and melancholy as I realized how different things had been from the previous night. I made an effort to control my feelings, but it was difficult to witness the party for Amanda being organized with such care. While I had been so ignored on my own birthday, I was still aching from being left behind and wounded by the disregard for my family because it felt like they had completely disregarded my feelings on my birthday. I made the decision to leave rather than merely sit back and watch them get ready for Amanda's party. I spent the night at my closest friend's place. After packing a few things, I needed to get away from the stress and chilly atmosphere of my house. I wanted a place to go where I could be understood and made to feel welcome. The home of my closest buddy served as a haven where I could at least experience a semblance of comfort and routine. Though it was an impulse choice, it seemed the proper one at the time. The strange thing was that my mom didn't even try to call me after I departed. No call or text asking me to return for Amanda's birthday was received. They acted as though my absence had no bearing on them at all. That was a serious blow to my already hurt emotions. It got me thinking, did they truly not want me around? Or were they simply indifferent to my presence and not interested enough to want to get in touch? I'm now writing this piece while sitting at my best friend's house and attempting to make sense of everything that has transpired. It's difficult for me to get rid of the rage and grief I'm experiencing. It's annoying to feel like I'm so unimportant to the ones I should be closest to. I'm attempting to ascertain how to handle these feelings and proceed. I'm contacting you because I need some guidance. How can I deal with having these feelings? How can I get past my feelings of grief and rage about what happened instead of letting this destroy me? I want to figure out how to get past it right now. Any guidance or words of support would be greatly appreciated. I appreciate you listening to my tale. Update 1. Hello to all of you. I have a lot of news to share with you. My residence has been evicted from me. Yes, the sound matches the drama. My parents evidently couldn't wait for me to go to college, even though it's just a few weeks away. The most insane aspect. It all began when I neglected to do the dishes. This is how things transpired then. One night my mother lost it totally because I hadn't gotten around to doing the dishes. She became really angry with me, accusing me of being entitled and ungrateful, saying that I never helped her around the house and all that kind of stuff. She seemed to be exaggerating the situation greatly. I made an effort to clarify that it was only one night and that I had been really busy getting ready for college. But rather than being calmer, her anger just increased. Yes, I gave up on patience too. I retaliated angrily, telling her how I felt about the way they had treated me all these years, how I was always the one who was overdone, and how my birthday was just another instance of their disdain. After I let everything out that I had been holding inside for years, I was unable to control myself. I told her about my upset feelings over everything, including the emotional detachment and Amanda's preference that, as you may imagine, did not go down well when things grew incredibly hot. My mom shouted for me to go as her face brightened red, though not surprised. I was astounded. Although I had predicted this for some time, I didn't anticipate that something as unremarkable as the dishes would set things off. I left without waiting for any further drama. I laughed as I grabbed the bag and added some necessities. I didn't even try to provide a lengthy farewell or explanation. I had to leave before things worsened because I was too angry. I told my mother that I needed to be somewhere else for the time being, and that I would return for my belongings when I went to college. I went directly to the home of my closest friend as I was heading there. I gave her a call to see if it would be okay if I crashed there for a while. Fortunately, she informed me I could stay for however long I needed to, and was really accommodating. Ever since, her apartment has been a refuge for me. Now I'm at a loss on what to do. Update 2. Hello to all of you. Though it has only been a few weeks since my last post, I felt it was only right to inform you all on my progress. To be honest, I haven't been doing much of anything, although there is some news that you might find interesting. I finally had an opportunity to speak with my grandfather yesterday, following the entire ordeal of getting ejected and all. I had the want to tell him what was going on. I gave him a call and informed him of the entire disorganized state of affairs. My argument with my mother, the consequences with my family, and how I ended up getting kicked out. He had, to put it mildly, a rather strong reaction when he learned what had transpired. He became utterly infuriated. He was astounded that a matter as unimportant as dishes could cause such a heated argument. More than anything, though, he was angry with me for not getting back to him sooner. He replied that had I called him sooner, he would have been happy to assist me. He was willing to help. So hearing that feeling of relief was mixed with annoyance at how everything was happening at once. We ended up talking about what had happened and how I was feeling for quite some time. Having someone who was prepared to stand up for me and who could relate to my side of the story was incredibly consoling. He gave me comfort telling me that I didn't have to face this alone and that he was on my side knowing that at least one member of my family was truly supportive. Made me feel good. The day after tomorrow, my grandfather has made the decision to help me move my belongings out of my parents' house. Knowing that I won't have to handle this on my own is a great relief. He's going to assist me with organizing and packing everything I need for college. To be completely honest, I'm a little anxious about seeing my parents again at the house, but having my grandfather there gives me a lot more self-assurance. Update 3. Hello to all of you. I'm sorry to inform you that I have another update, but it is not a good one. With my grandfather's assistance, I was finally going to get my belongings from my parents' house yesterday. When we got to my parents' house, though, things took a terribly bad turn, and I was horrified to see that practically everything I owned was disappeared. As it turned out, almost everything had been donated or thrown away. Only a few worn-out notebooks remained. I had eyes I couldn't believe. It seemed like a complete invasion of my personal property. I had no idea what to say. I naturally brought it up to my folks. I asked them if they knew where all of my belongings had disappeared and what had become of them. They laughed at me in response. They genuinely chuckled. It felt as though they laughed at my anguish. I was in disbelief and devastated. I couldn't contain my tears as it felt like a final slap in the face when he saw how they handled me. My grandfather became enraged, though I could sense he wanted to approach them more forcefully. He maintained his composure despite having a red face. Rather than engaging in a heated dispute, it would be better if he just left. He decided, especially since I was already in such a vulnerable state, it wasn't worth getting worse. The tears really started to come when we got back in the car. I was sobbing quite a bit, feeling so emotionally spent and completely devastated. My grandfather, the amazing helper that he is, made every effort to console me. He expressed his regret to me for how things had transpired and expressed his wish that he could have taken more action. He lifted my spirits and made sure I had all I needed for college by assuring me that I wasn't alone and that we would work this out together. I went shopping with my grandfather. Going through stores and selecting necessities for the next phase of my life felt a little weird, while the pain from what had happened continued to sting. However, his generosity and perseverance in helping me get back on my feet meant a great deal to me. We were able to acquire a few necessities, and it felt good to know that I was prepared for the necessities. In addition, my best buddy informed me I could take everything I wanted out of her belongings. She promised to get me supplies, clothes, and whatever else I needed. It brought me great comfort to know that I had individuals who actually cared about me and wanted to assist me during such a trying time. Mother-in-law kicks me out of the expensive family vacation I paid and demands I stay home to babysit sister-in-law's kids. Okay, so I don't even know where to start with this. I've been married to Mike for about 2 years now, and let me tell you, he's awesome. We get along great, he's supportive, loving, all that good stuff. I honestly feel lucky to have him in my life. But of course, no relationship comes without its baggage. And in my case, that baggage is in the form of his mom, Karen, and his sister, Emma. Now, don't get me wrong. I didn't go into this marriage thinking it would all be sunshine and rainbows with the in-laws. I mean, I expected some awkwardness, right? I knew Karen and Emma might take a little time to warm up to me, but the level of outright disrespect? Yeah, I wasn't ready for that. So let's rewind a bit. When Mike and I first started dating, everything was great. We had that honeymoon phase where everything just felt perfect. It wasn't until I met his family that things got a little weird. I remember the first time I met Karen, Mike's mom. We were at this casual family dinner, and I was nervous as hell. I mean, who wouldn't be? Meeting the mom is a big deal. Anyway, we get there, and from the second I walk in, it's like I could feel her sizing me up. She didn't even try to hide it. She gave me one of those forced smiles that didn't reach her eyes, you know? And then, the whole time, she was just distant, cold. She'd ask me questions, but not in a getting to know you kind of way. More like she was just going through the motions. I remember telling Mike about it afterward, and he was like, "Oh, don't worry, she's just like that with everyone." And okay, maybe I gave her the benefit of the doubt at first, but then every time we saw her after that, it was the same thing. She'd barely talk to me, and when she did, it was always some backhanded compliment or just straight up dismissive. Like, when she found out I run a daycare business, she said, "Oh, so you're basically just a babysitter?" with this smug look on her face. Look, I'm proud of what I do. I worked my ass off to build my daycare business from the ground up, and I make good money doing it. But to Karen, I guess I was just some nanny who wasn't good enough for her precious son. It didn't matter that Mike was happy or that I was taking care of him. No, all she saw was someone who didn't fit her idea of what his wife should be. And then there's Emma, his sister. Oh man, Emma's something else. She's got this whole "I'm better than you" vibe that's hard to ignore. The first time I met her, she didn't even bother to hide her disdain. She straight up looked me up and down like I was trash. And the worst part? She didn't even try to hide it from Mike. She'd make little digs at me in front of him like, Oh, you're still doing that daycare thing? When are you gonna get a real job? Real job? I own a freaking business. But in her mind, if you're not sitting in some office in a suit, it doesn't count. It's like she thought I was some gold digger, even though I was the one making more money than Mike at the time. I didn't say anything, though, because I didn't want to start drama. But it stung. I think what really got to me was how they acted like I didn't deserve to be part of their family. Like, they'd have these family gatherings, and I'd always feel like the outsider. They'd all be talking and laughing, and I'd just be sitting there trying to join in. But it was like they didn't even see me. Karen would talk about all these fancy things she wanted for Mike, and how she hoped he'd settle down with someone who can really support him. I'm sitting right there, lady. I am that someone. But no, according to her, I wasn't good enough. I remember one time we were at this family party, and Karen had one too many glasses of wine. She started going on about how she didn't understand why Mike married so quickly, and how it's so important to find someone who matches your potential. I was literally sitting next to Mike, trying not to let my blood boil. But Mike? He didn't say a word. I could see the tension in his face, but he just let it slide. That's kind of been the theme of our marriage so far. Mike loves me, and I know he does, but when it comes to his family, he's always trying to keep the peace. I get it, I really do. No one wants to be stuck in the middle of family drama, but sometimes I wish he'd stand up to them more, you know? Like tell his mom and sister to back off. It's not like I haven't tried to fix things with them either. I've bent over backward to be nice. When Emma was going through her divorce, I was the one who offered to help. I took her and her kids in for a few weeks, helped her get back on her feet, even took her kids to school so she could get some sleep. And you'd think that would have at least earned me a little bit of respect, right? Nope. The second she got her life back together, it was back to the same crap. Like none of it even mattered. And Karen? Well, she wasn't any better. I've tried so hard to get on her good side. I've helped Mike send her money when she was going through some tough financial times, helped out with family events, you name it. But it's like nothing I do is ever enough for her. She just sees me as this outsider, like I'm not part of their family. It all came to a head last year when we went to a family wedding. Everything was going fine until Emma started bad-mouthing me to a few of the other guests. I don't know what she said exactly, but Mike overheard and he lost it. He pulled her aside and told her off, right in front of everyone. I tried to calm him down, but in the process I accidentally bumped into Karen, and she spilled her drink all over her fancy dress. You'd think I ran over her dog with the way she reacted. She made this huge scene about how expensive her dress was and how clumsy I must be in my daily life. I felt like the whole room was staring at me, and all I wanted to do was disappear. Mike and I left the party early, and ever since then, things have been even more tense between us and his family. I haven't heard much from Karen or Emma since that wedding, and honestly, I'm kind of okay with that. But it's hard, you know? I love Mike, but his family makes me feel like I'm constantly on trial. And no matter what I do, I can't seem to win them over. But hey, maybe things will change, right? Maybe this vacation I'm planning for all of us will be the thing that finally brings us together. Or maybe it'll just be another disaster. I guess we'll find out soon enough. All right, so here's where things really start to get interesting. After all the crap I've been dealing with from Karen and Emma, I figured I'd try one last time to, I don't know, bring us all closer together. Maybe I'm a sucker for punishment, but I had this idea that a nice family vacation might be the thing to help us get along. Like we could all just relax, spend time together, and hopefully get rid of this awkward tension that's been hanging over us since, well, forever. So a few months before my birthday, I started planning this whole thing. I figured it would be the perfect opportunity, right? My birthday was coming up and I could take some time off work, so why not? I was thinking about going all out for it. Like booking this fancy resort for the whole family, making it a big, fun trip. I'm talking all expenses paid top-notch stuff. I've been working my ass off with my business and I can afford to treat myself a little. Plus, I thought it'd be nice to show Karen and Emma that, hey, I'm not just some nanny. I'm successful. I can do this kind of stuff. Mike loved the idea. He was all for it, probably because he knew how stressed I'd been with his family and thought a vacation would help me unwind. We sat down one night after dinner and started going through options. You know, looking at different resorts, checking out activities, all that. I wanted to pick a place that would make everyone happy, which, now that I think about it, was a mistake in itself because, spoiler alert, there's no pleasing Karen and Emma. Anyway, after we did some research, we found this amazing place. It had everything: beachfront views, fancy restaurants, pools, spas, you name it. I was super excited. I thought, this is it. This is going to be the trip that finally gets us on the same page. I told Mike I'd handle the booking and all that, but I asked him to talk to his mom and sister about coming along. I figured it'd be better if he handled that part, you know? Maybe they'd be more likely to say yes if it came from him. Mike was cool with it, so he went to talk to them. And that's when the first red flag popped up. He comes back from their house, and I can already tell something's off. He's got this look on his face like he just got done wrestling with a bear or something, so I'm like, hey, how'd it go? They're excited, right? He just kind of sighs and shakes his head. Not really, he says. Not really? What the hell does that mean? I ask him to explain, and he tells me that Karen and Emma weren't exactly thrilled with the idea of going on a vacation with us. Apparently, they'd both been to the resort I picked at some point last year and weren't interested in going again. They didn't even care that I was offering to pay for everything. Karen actually said, and I'm quoting Mike here, "I've already been there. What's the point of going back?" The point, Karen, is to spend time with your freaking family. But of course, she doesn't see it that way. Emma, on the other hand, wasn't even that polite about it. She straight up called me after Mike left their house and told me she didn't want to be involved in any of my tacky plans. Tacky. Can you believe that? Here I am, planning this awesome trip, spending my hard-earned money to treat these people, and she calls it tacky. I'm not gonna lie. That one stung. I hung up the phone feeling like absolute crap. I mean, what's the point of trying so hard if they're just gonna keep throwing it back in my face? I was ready to cancel the whole thing right then and there. But Mike, bless his heart, talked me down. He reminded me that this wasn't about them. It was about us. We deserved a vacation, and if they didn't want to come, then screw them. But of course, it's never that simple, right? A couple of days later, Emma calls me again, and this time, she's got a whole new set of demands. She tells me that she'll consider coming on the trip, but only if I agree to watch her kids while we're there. Now, don't get me wrong. I love her kids. They're sweethearts, and I don't mind helping out. But the way she asked me, it wasn't a request. It was like she was expecting me to do it, like it was my job. And it wasn't just for a few hours here and there. No, she wanted me to be the full-time babysitter so she could relax. At first, I thought maybe she was joking, but nope, she was dead serious. I tried to push back a little, like, hey, I'm on vacation too, you know? Maybe we can work something out where we all take turns or something. But Emma wasn't having it. She basically said if I didn't agree to watch her kids, she wasn't coming. So there I am, stuck between wanting to have this nice family trip and not wanting to be a doormat. I didn't know what to do. I vented to Mike about it, and he was pissed. He said it wasn't fair for Emma to treat me like that, and he was right. But part of me still wanted to make it work. I guess I was hoping that if I just sucked it up and played nice, maybe things would get better. I told Mike I'd talk to Emma again, see if we could come to some kind of compromise. But when I called her back, it was clear she had no intention of budging. She straight up told me that she didn't want to bring her kids along at all. She just wanted me to stay back and watch them while she went on vacation. Like, she thought I was going to sit at home and babysit while she enjoyed the trip that I was paying for. I was floored. I didn't even know what to say. I tried to explain that I wanted her kids to be part of the vacation too, that it would be fun for all of us. But she wasn't having it. She said she had no interest in dragging them along and that I needed to understand my role in the family. Understand my role? What does that even mean? At this point, I was done. I told her that if she wasn't willing to be reasonable, then maybe she should just stay home. I was tired of bending over backward for people who clearly didn't give a damn about me. After that, I hung up the phone and went to talk to Mike. He was just as frustrated as I was, and we agreed that it was probably best to just move forward with the trip, whether they came or not. But deep down, I was still holding out hope. Hope that maybe, just maybe, they'd come around. That maybe Karen and Emma would realize how much I was trying, and we could have this nice family vacation after all. I guess I'm a bit of an optimist that way. But looking back now, I should have known better. Okay, so here's where things get even more ridiculous. After all that drama with Emma basically trying to turn me into her personal babysitter for the trip, I thought things couldn't get worse. But boy, was I wrong. So fast forward a bit. I'm still going through with the vacation, but I haven't really heard much from Karen or Emma since that last conversation. It was radio silence, and honestly, I was relieved. I needed the break. But just when I thought I could breathe easy, guess who pops back up? Yep, Emma. Out of nowhere, I get this text from her. It's one of those, hey, hope you're doing well, by the way, kind of messages. You know, the kind that immediately sets off alarm bells because it's so obvious that they're about to ask for something. So I open it, and sure enough, she's like, just wanted to check if you can watch the kids for a few hours tonight. I have some things I need to take care of. I sit there staring at my phone. Like, seriously? After everything that happened with this vacation plan, she's really coming at me with this? At first, I wanted to ignore it, but I figured it'd just make things worse later. So I replied, Sure, I guess. But what time are you thinking? Trying to be civil, you know? Even though I knew this was going to be a whole thing. Emma replies back right away, saying she'll drop the kids off around 6. No explanation, no apology. Just like it was completely normal to drop everything on me. And I'm like, okay, whatever, it's just for a few hours, right? Wrong. 6 p.m. rolls around and Emma shows up at my door with her kids. But here's the kicker. She doesn't just drop them off and leave. Nope, she's standing there with this weird look on her face, like she's about to drop some kind of bomb on me. Not literally, because I know I can't use that word. LOL. I'm trying to play it cool, so I ask, everything okay? And then she says, oh, by the way, I might not be back until tomorrow. Wait, what? I'm just standing there like an idiot, processing what she just said. Tomorrow? She didn't mention anything about an overnight stay. I wasn't prepared for that. I mean, I love her kids, but I didn't sign up to be their full-time babysitter, especially after all the crap she's pulled. So I tell her, Emma, I thought you said a few hours. She kind of shrugs and goes, yeah, I've got some personal stuff to handle, and it might take longer than I thought. Thanks again, I really appreciate it. And before I can even say anything else, she's out the door, leaving me with 2 kids and no clue what to do. At this point, I'm fuming. Like, the audacity of this woman, right? But the kids are here now, and it's not their fault, so I try to make the best of it. I text Mike to let him know what's going on, and of course, he's pissed too. He's like, I'll talk to her later, just focus on the kids for now. So I do. We order pizza, watch a movie, and I try to keep my cool. But the whole time, I'm sitting there thinking about how much of a pushover I've been. Like, how did I let it get to this point? I've been trying so hard to make things work with Karen and Emma, and all they do is take advantage of me. I can't even plan a simple vacation without getting roped into babysitting duties that I never signed up for. Anyway, the night goes on, and as expected, Emma never comes back. So now I'm stuck with her kids overnight, scrambling to find pajamas and a place for them to sleep. I don't even have half the stuff they need because, surprise, Emma didn't bring anything with her. No clothes, no toothbrushes, nothing. It's like she just assumed I'd handle everything. Typical. The next morning, I wake up exhausted. The kids are running around the house like they own the place, and I'm just trying to keep my sanity. Mike had to leave early for work, so it's just me dealing with everything. I keep checking my phone, waiting for some kind of message from Emma, but there's nothing. Not a single text or call. It's like she disappeared off the face of the earth. Finally, around noon, I text her, hey, the kids are still here. When are you picking them up? No response. By 3 p.m., I'm losing it. I text her again, more forcefully this time. Emma, I need to know when you're coming to get the kids. This wasn't part of the plan. Still no reply. At this point, I'm seriously considering driving over to her place and just dropping the kids off on her doorstep. But Mike convinces me to give it a little more time. She'll show up eventually, he says. She always does. Well, he was right, but not in the way I expected. Around 6 p.m., a full 24 hours after she first dropped off the kids, Emma finally shows up. She walks in like nothing's wrong, all casual and calm, like she didn't just leave her kids with me for a full day without any warning. I'm standing there, trying not to blow up, but I can feel the anger bubbling up inside me. She looks at me and goes, thanks so much. I really needed that break. Needed a break? I wanted to scream, but instead I say, Emma, you didn't tell me this was going to be an overnight thing. I wasn't prepared. And do you know what she says? She just shrugs again and goes, oh, I thought I mentioned it. My bad. Your bad? That's it? I couldn't even believe what I was hearing. It was like she didn't care at all about how much she was inconveniencing me. I mean, who does that? Who just dumps their kids on someone without even a heads up? Mike gets home not long after, and he can tell right away that I'm on the edge. He pulls me aside and asks what happened, so I fill him in on everything. And bless him, he's ready to go off on Emma, but I stop him. I tell him it's not worth it. She clearly doesn't care, and I'm tired of fighting a losing battle. That night, after everything had settled down and Emma finally left with her kids, I lay in bed thinking about the whole situation. I realized something important. I've been way too nice. I've let Karen and Emma walk all over me for too long, and it was time to put a stop to it. I couldn't keep bending over backward for people who clearly didn't respect me. I knew that the next time Emma tried to pull something like this, I'd have to put my foot down. No more babysitting without clear boundaries. No more letting them treat me like a second-class citizen in my own family. It was time to start standing up for myself. And as for the vacation, well, I had a new plan in mind. Let's just say Emma and Karen were about to get a taste of their own medicine. All right, so after the whole babysitting disaster, I was done with Emma and Karen. Like, I couldn't take it anymore. The constant disrespect, the way they used me whenever it suited them, It was like I was nothing more than a convenience in their eyes. And the worst part? They didn't even bother pretending to care. I knew I had to do something. I couldn't just keep letting them walk all over me. But I wasn't exactly sure what the something was yet. I mean, how do you even deal with people like that? Part of me wanted to confront them, just let it all out. But knowing Karen and Emma, that would probably just make things worse. They'd twist it around, make me look like the bad guy, and I'd end up feeling even more frustrated. So, I did what I always do when I'm stressed. I started planning. I needed a way to take back control of the situation. And then, it hit me. The vacation. The one I had been planning for weeks. The trip I was paying for with my own money. That was my leverage. If they didn't appreciate me, then they didn't get to enjoy a free vacation on my dime. It was time to turn the tables. Now, I know what you're thinking. Why didn't I just cancel the whole trip right then and there? Well, part of me still hoped that maybe, just maybe, they'd come around. I know, it's stupid, but I guess I wanted to give them one last chance to show they weren't total garbage. So instead of canceling the trip, I decided to play it cool and see what happened. A few days later, I got a call from Karen. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. She rarely called unless she needed something, so I figured there had to be a reason. Sure enough, as soon as I picked up, she was all business. "Hey, I just wanted to check when we're supposed to leave for the vacation," she said, like nothing had happened. No mention of the babysitting fiasco, no apology, just straight to the point, like everything was fine. I couldn't help but smirk to myself. They really thought they were just going to waltz onto this trip like nothing had happened. Typical. "Yeah, about that," I said, trying to keep my tone neutral. "I was actually thinking of making some changes to the plan." There was a pause on the other end of the line. I could almost hear Karen's confusion. "What kind of changes?" she asked, her voice a little sharper now. "Well," I said, "since I'm paying for everything, I figured I'd decide who's going. And, after everything that's happened lately, I'm not sure you and Emma really deserve to come." Boom. I dropped that right in her lap. And let me tell you, the silence on the other end was golden. For a second, I thought she'd hung up, but then she came back with, "What do you mean by that?" I leaned into it. "I mean, I've been bending over backward to try and get along with you and Emma, and all I've gotten in return is disrespect. Emma treats me like a free babysitter, and you act like I'm not good enough for Mike. So yeah, I'm rethinking the whole vacation thing. Now, I expected her to blow up. I thought she'd start yelling or getting defensive. But instead, Karen went full Karen mode, and her voice got all cold and calculated. "Well, if that's how you feel, then maybe it's best if we don't go. But you should know that Mike's family won't be happy if you exclude us." There it was. The guilt trip. I saw it coming from a mile away, but it still hit me like a ton of bricks. She was basically threatening me with the whole family. Like they'd all turn against me if I dared to stand up for myself. But this time, I wasn't backing down. "That's fine," I said. "If they have a problem with me, they can take it up with Mike. But I'm done letting you and Emma take advantage of me. If you want to go on vacation, you can pay for your own." I think that's when it really sunk in for Karen that I wasn't playing around anymore. She tried to backtrack, saying something about how she didn't mean to make me feel that way, and that she hoped we could work things out. But I wasn't buying it. I'd heard it all before, and I knew she was just trying to save face. So I ended the call by telling her that I'd let her know if anything changed, but for now, they weren't coming. And then I hung up. After that conversation, I felt a weird mix of emotions. On one hand, I was proud of myself for finally standing up to Karen, but on the other hand, I was nervous about the fallout. I mean, I didn't want to cause a huge rift between Mike and his family. But at the same time, I couldn't keep living like this, constantly tiptoeing around Karen and Emma's feelings while they stomped all over mine. When Mike got home that night, I told him everything. I was half expecting him to be upset or disappointed, but to my surprise, he wasn't. In fact, he seemed relieved. "Honestly," he said, "I've been wanting to say something to them for a while now, but I didn't know how. I'm glad you stood up for yourself." That was the moment I realized I wasn't alone in this. Mike had my back, and together, we were going to handle whatever came next. The next day, I started getting texts from Emma. They were mostly guilt-trippy, passive-aggressive nonsense like, "I guess we're not family anymore, and I hope you're happy ruining our vacation." I ignored all of them. I wasn't going to let her manipulate me anymore. I knew what I had to do, and I wasn't backing down. Then, Karen sent one last message. It was short and sweet. "We'll be at the airport on the day of the trip. I hope you change your mind." The audacity. At that point, I knew exactly what I was going to do. They thought they could bully me into changing my mind, but they had no idea what was coming. I wasn't just going to cancel their tickets. I was going to make sure they showed up at the airport, ready for the trip of a lifetime, only to find out they weren't going anywhere. It was petty, I'll admit that. But after everything they'd put me through, I figured they deserved a little taste of their own medicine. I told Mike the plan, and he was fully on board. He even helped me make sure everything was set up perfectly. We'd let them think they were going on this amazing vacation, let them pack their bags and show up at the airport, only to find out they were never even on the list. The day of reckoning was coming, and I couldn't wait to see the look on their faces. All right, so here we are, the day of the trip, the day I'd been planning and waiting for. I was ready for whatever drama Karen and Emma were going to bring, and I had no doubts it was going to be epic. Mike and I woke up early, packed our bags, and made our way to the airport. I could feel that nervous excitement building up. You know, the kind you get when you're about to pull off a prank or something? I was trying to keep my cool, but inside I was practically buzzing with anticipation. We got to the airport a little earlier than we needed to, just to make sure everything was in place. I had everything ready: our tickets, the hotel confirmation, and most importantly, the knowledge that Karen and Emma weren't on the guest list for this trip. I'd already canceled their flights, and Mike and I were all set to leave without them. But here's the fun part. They had no idea. I checked my phone, and sure enough, there was a text from Karen. "On our way to the airport, can't wait," it read. I could almost hear the smugness in her tone, like she thought everything was fine, like she was still in control. But little did she know, that was about to change. About an hour later, Mike and I are chilling at the airport, sipping coffee, when I see them. Karen and Emma, strutting in with their luggage like they owned the place. Karen had this huge smile on her face, probably imagining the luxurious vacation she thought was just a plane ride away. Emma, of course, looked bored, like she was doing me a favor by even showing up. They spotted us pretty quickly and made their way over. I could tell from the look on Mike's face that he was already bracing for impact. Karen waved at us with that fake enthusiastic energy she always put on, like she was so excited to see us. Emma was trailing behind, scrolling on her phone, completely uninterested in everything. "Hey, there you guys are," Karen said, way too cheerful for what was about to go down. "Are you ready for this trip or what?" I just smiled and nodded. "Yeah, we're ready," I said, trying to keep it together. Mike shot me a glance like, "This is going to be good," and I nodded back. "Did you guys already check in?" Karen asked, looking around like she was expecting some grand welcome. "Oh, we're all set," I said. "You guys should go ahead and check in, though." Karen looked a little confused. "Aren't we all checking in together?" I shrugged. "Nah, we did ours earlier. You'll have to get your tickets at the counter." And that's when it started. Karen's smile faltered just a bit, but she didn't say anything. She and Emma dragged their bags to the check-in counter, and Mike and I hung back, pretending to be distracted by our phones. I was keeping one eye on them the whole time, though. I saw Karen step up to the desk, hand over her ID, and start talking to the airline worker. It didn't take long for the confusion to set in. I couldn't hear exactly what was being said, but I could see Karen's expression slowly change from that fake cheerful grin to full-on panic mode. Her hand started waving around, and she kept pointing at the computer like there must have been some mistake. Emma, meanwhile, was still on her phone, oblivious to everything happening. Mike leaned over and whispered, "Think they've figured it out yet?" I chuckled. "Oh, they're figuring it out." A few minutes later, Karen stormed back over to us, her face red with frustration. Emma was finally paying attention now, trailing behind her with a scowl on her face. "What the hell is going on?" Karen snapped, her voice louder than it needed to be. "They're saying we're not on the flight. There must be some kind of mistake." This was it, the moment I'd been waiting for. I stood up, looking Karen dead in the eye, and said, "No mistake. You're not on the flight." For a second, it was like she didn't understand what I'd just said. She blinked, and her face twisted into this weird mix of confusion and anger. "What do you mean we're not on the flight? We're supposed to be going with you." I shrugged, trying to act casual even though I was loving every second of this. "Yeah, about that. I decided it'd be better if Mike and I just went alone. You know, after everything that's happened, I figured you guys didn't really want to come." Emma, who had been quiet this whole time, finally chimed in. "Wait, what? You're ditching us?" I nodded. "Pretty much." Karen looked like she was about to explode. "You can't just do that," she sputtered. "We're family. You can't just leave us behind." And that's when I laid it all out. I told her about how fed up I was with the way they treated me, how I was tired of being their doormat, and how this was my trip, and I didn't owe them anything. I didn't raise my voice, didn't lose my cool. I just calmly explained that I was done letting them take advantage of me. Karen kept trying to interrupt, throwing in things like, "But we're family," and "How could you do this to us?" But I didn't back down. I'd rehearsed this moment in my head 100 times, and I wasn't about to let her guilt trip me into changing my mind. By the time I was finished, Karen was staring at me like I'd just slapped her. Emma, for once in her life, was speechless. She just stood there, arms crossed, glaring at me like she couldn't believe what was happening. "So yeah," I said, wrapping it up. "Mike and I are going on vacation, and you guys aren't. Simple as that." Karen looked like she was about to cry, which was honestly a little satisfying to see. This is so unfair," she muttered. "After everything we've done for you?" I almost laughed at that. Everything they've done for me? Please. But instead, I just smiled and said, "You'll be fine. Maybe next time you'll think twice about how you treat people." With that, Mike and I grabbed our bags and headed toward the gate. I didn't bother looking back, but I could hear Karen still ranting to Emma about how unbelievable this all was. I'm sure they'll spend the next few months telling everyone how awful I am, but honestly, I don't care. I felt free, like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. As Mike and I boarded the plane, he gave me this big, goofy grin. "You handled that perfectly," he said, leaning in to give me a kiss. "Thanks," I said, grinning back. "I think I've finally had enough of their crap." And that's how we left Karen and Emma at the airport, ready to enjoy our vacation without them. It wasn't just about the trip, though. It was about finally standing up for myself and taking control of my life. And honestly, it felt really good.